Give me a clap. Oof, that was a fucking good clap.
I might need to sample that clap. Hi, this is Senz Beats, longtime Koala user, beat maker, originally from Brussels, coming to you live from Montreal. Happy to be here today to talk about Koala. I tend to use Koala mainly because of the ease of use. I find it extremely intuitive. It feels like it was made for me. It's a very quick way to get to where you want to go in terms of making a beat, and the audio fidelity is great. I think it's just an amazing product. It also comes with real-time updates, like as in week to week. You might be getting an update on your sampler, which I've never lived through before with hardware samplers. So I think I was able to progress quite quickly on Koala thanks to having put in so many hours on the MPC, specifically mainly the MPC 2000 XL, which comes with a lot of limitations. So once I hopped onto Koala, it was suddenly like all these gates that had been around me all this time were just taken away, and I was free to work with audio in a much more direct way. There were no shortcuts. I did put in my 10,000 hours or whatever. The time that I put in on the MPC was not lost on Koala, and vice versa, because I've gone back and forth between the two since I've started using Koala. I can see the progress on both sides and how both influence each other. It's beautiful. So I just put out a new project. It's called Eucalyze Legalyptus Koala Beats Volume 3. It's the third installment to my entirely Koala Sampler produced beat tapes. The first one came out in February 2020, just a few months after I started using Koala. The second one followed shortly afterwards in June, and then it's been a hiatus of 3 years of collecting beats. Finally managed to have the artistic vision I wanted and put the right beats together in the right sequence. I'm really happy with the end result. Where do I get my sounds from? Yeah. Profusely sweating. My sounds! When I'm using Koala, the screen record is such an easy function that I'm often on YouTube scrolling through samples and just recording stuff straight to my phone and importing that into Koala. The internal mic is also very powerful and has led me to meeting strangers in the street and asking them if I could record them playing an instrument. It's a beautiful way to add something to a piece that you're working on, or just recording ambiences around you as you're walking around. First and foremost, I was a DJ, and I used to watch DJ battles on VHS, the DMC DJ battles. A couple of years ago, there was a SP 404 versus Koala Sampler global tournament. I was lucky enough to get a spot in there on Team Koala. It was an amazing experience. I met a lot of beat makers, a lot of producers, some people that I still work with today. It was also during the pandemic, so it felt almost like a real live event. There was so much energy attached to it, and it was really a blessing to be able to be part of that movement, part of that tournament, part of the whole group chat that ensued from Team Koala, which still goes on. Being a part of the Koala community has been a catalyst for my beats, and just seeing people posting beats every day has been incredibly inspiring, and just makes you want to grab your phone, grab your iPad, and get chopping. So it's been a real joy to be a part of. And the Koala Beatcast, shout out Remy, yeah, he's been doing his thing. You know, he's hundreds of episodes deep now, and it's a great event to bring the Koala community together. I don't necessarily feel like I've ever found my style. I feel like I'm still searching for it, but I think there is a byproduct of doing that searching, which becomes a style to other people that hear your music. So it's hard for me to define it, but I know what my influences are. And so I think at one point I was describing my beats as post-apocalyptic funk. I don't know if I can really live up to that, but I'd love to think that I do. My earliest exposure to music was probably in the living room at home, my mom playing some of her record collection. That famous Phil Collins drum roll in Feel It in the Air Tonight was a big influence in terms of teaching me what a drop was. My sister, she had an amazing CD collection. She was more into the rock side, but there was an interesting crossover in the mid-90s with groups like Rage Against the Machine, which also opened my eyes to the hip-hop sound. There was also TV channels that used to play music 24 hours a day, one of them being MTV. And in Belgium, there was also MCM, which was a French music channel which had a hip-hop show. I started off from more of a rock trajectory, then through skateboarding got into more punk and hardcore, and simultaneously also discovered hip-hop because there was an interesting cross-section of New York hardcore bands. There was actually a soundtrack that came out at some point called Judgment Night, which was a mesh between like metal bands and hip-hop groups. There were some horrible songs that came out of it, but some amazing ones too. It sort of made my young mind explode that this was even conceivable, that these genres could mesh and like make something new. But basically it made me drop the rock side a little bit and get a lot more into the hip hop side of things. RZA, DJ Premier, Pete Rock, LP a lot as well. That album Cannibal Ox, The Cold Vein was a huge influence on me. It was also released on my 18th birthday, so it's always been a special record to me. We all go through beat block or getting stuck at certain points creatively. What I try to do to get out of it, which is kind of paradoxical, is to just make beats. You don't have to feel it 100% of the time. There's a process that you follow in order to get to a beat. If you go through the stages, you will inevitably get to a beat, whether your inner critic thinks it's good or not. The main sample that I started with sounded something like this, but as you might be able to hear, I have already added a little bit of crush onto that sample. I've also time stretched it and resampled it to a pad. After I'd resampled it and affected it, I chopped it into multiple pads. The drum sequence that I would have started with would have probably been these quantized first kick and 2 snares. I pretty much always start with the drums. If the drums smack by themselves, if I'm grooving along, I'm already winning out the gate. Once I'd have an idea of where I was going with the sample, I'd embellish the beat a little bit. I try and keep things loose to a certain extent, so I'll often do things like quantizing my first kick, maybe quantizing a snare or 2, playing in a hi-hat pattern with no quantize, so things get loose that way. I added a bass line, did my best to make it sound in key. One of the things that's most important in a beat battle is the energy. I think this is more important than having a perfect beat. As long as you've captured that live energy that you're feeling as you're making the beat, that will translate to the people that are listening to it. It also helps to have some heavy drums and heavy bass. I chopped out a part of an acapella, placed it on 4 pads at different velocities so that I could get a delay effect. Another part of the sample pitched up to give a guitar sound. I panned these left and right and played with the velocity. As a teenager, I managed to make a deal with my mom that I'd do a half-hour lesson of maths followed by a half-hour of guitar. I didn't get very good at either of them, but I did learn the basics of guitar, which still helps me today sometimes. I have some effects on the master. I've pitched the whole beat down, I've added a bit of reverb, I've added a little bit of dirt, and the compressor is maxed out. Thanks to my rat for making this app. It's really been a life-changing app, all things said and done. It's revolutionized the scene. Everybody's been talking about it for the past couple of years. Excited to see where it goes next, because it's always in development.